I haven't had love in 6 months, the giant Apache woman said to the shy cowboy rancher. The Arizona sun hung low over the horizon, painting the sky in streaks of orange and gold. The desert was quiet, except for the soft hum of cicadas and the occasional whisper of wind through the scrub brush. On the edge of a narrow, dusty road stood a small cattle ranch, a modest piece of land bordered by jagged red cliffs. It was a simple place with a wooden barn, a few corrals, and the warm smell of hay and dry earth. Life here moved slowly, each day following the last in a steady rhythm that had not changed for years. Eli Thompson, a young cowboy in his late 20s, lived on this ranch. He was a quiet man, the kind of person who preferred the company of animals to people. He had grown up here, learning the ways of cattle and horses from his father and grandfather, who had passed down the ranch like a cherished family secret. Eli loved the work, the early mornings, the long rides across open land, the sound of hooves clattering on hard dirt. But despite the beauty of his life, there was a loneliness that lingered around him like a shadow. He had few friends, and his shy nature kept him from seeking romance. This afternoon, Eli was mending a broken fence along the eastern corral. The wood was old and weathered, the nails loose, but he worked with steady hands, hammering each piece with care. The sweat on his forehead dried quickly in the dry air, and he paused for a moment to wipe his brow, taking in the quiet around him. The desert was beautiful, but it could feel empty, even to someone who had lived there all his life. Suddenly, Eli noticed movement at the edge of the property. A figure was walking along the dusty road, approaching the ranch gate. At first, he thought it might be a traveler, or perhaps a neighbor passing by. But as the figure drew closer, he realized she was unlike anyone he had ever seen. She was tall, much taller than most women he knew, and her presence was commanding. Her dark hair framed a strong yet gentle face, and her eyes held a quiet confidence that made Eli instinctively step back. The woman paused at the gate, looking around with interest. She wore simple clothing, sturdy boots, and a wide-brimmed hat that shaded her face from the afternoon sun. Eli felt a flutter of nervousness in his chest. He was not used to visitors, especially ones who seemed so certain of themselves. "Hello there," the woman called, her voice warm and clear, carrying easily across the dry land. "My name is Marisol." Eli straightened, unsure of what to say. I'm Eli. Welcome to my ranch," he replied, his voice quieter than he intended. Marisol smiled, a smile that was both kind and confident. "It's a beautiful place you have here," she said, glancing at the corral and the wooden barn. "I hope you don't mind me stopping by." Eli shook his head. "Not at all. I don't get many visitors." He paused, then added, "Are you traveling?" Marisol stepped closer, resting her hand lightly on the gate. "Something like that," she said. Then, almost as if sharing a secret, she added, "I haven't had love in 6 months." Eli blinked, caught completely off guard. He had not expected such a statement, especially not from someone he had just met. His cheeks warmed and he looked down at the ground for a moment, unsure how to respond. Marisol noticed his hesitation and chuckled softly. It was a gentle sound, not mocking, but curious, like she was enjoying seeing someone flustered. "Don't worry," she said. "I don't expect anything from you. I just needed someone to talk to." Eli nodded, slowly lifting his gaze to meet hers. There was something sincere in her eyes, something that told him she was being honest. Despite her size and confident manner, there was a hint of vulnerability there, and it tugged at something inside him. "Well," he said finally, scratching the back of his neck, "I can offer you some water. And shade." It's hot out here. Marisol's smile widened. That would be lovely. Thank you, Eli. Eli led her toward the small porch beside the ranch house. The wooden boards creaked under their feet, and the warm air smelled faintly of dust and hay. He brought out a couple of glasses of water and set them on the table, sitting down across from her with a cautious curiosity. Marisol sipped her water, then leaned back in her chair, looking around at the ranch. "It's peaceful here," she said, almost to herself. "I can feel it. The quiet, the space, it's nice." Ellie nodded. "It is. I like it here. There's work to do, but it's a good life. You get used to the silence." She laughed softly, a sound that seemed to linger in the air. "I like it too," she said. "There's something comforting about it. And you seem like someone who understands that." Eli's heart thumped in his chest. He was not used to compliments, especially from someone so striking. I try," he said. "The ranch keeps me busy. And, well, I like animals more than people, usually." Marisol nodded, her gaze thoughtful. "I can understand that. People can be complicated. Animals, they're honest. They don't lie. They don't judge. They just are." Ellie smiled faintly, feeling a strange connection to her words. There was something about Marisol that made him feel both nervous and calm at the same time. He wanted to ask her more about herself, but he wasn't sure where to start. They sat for a while in silence, drinking water and listening to the distant sounds of cattle in the corrals. The desert sun slowly dipped lower, casting long shadows across the ranch. Marisol broke the silence first. "You know," she said, "I didn't just come here by accident. I've been traveling for a while, looking for, I'm not sure, maybe peace. Maybe a place where I can feel like myself. And something about this place, about you, it felt right to stop." Eli felt his throat tighten. He didn't know how to respond. He was used to solitude, to the predictable rhythm of ranch life, not unexpected confessions from strangers. But there was something in her voice, something honest and unguarded, that made him want to listen. "I'm glad you stopped," he said finally. It's good to have company sometimes, even if I'm not very good at conversation." Marisol laughed again, a sound that was like music in the still desert air. "You're doing fine, Eli. You don't have to be anyone else. I can tell you're genuine. That counts for a lot." For a moment, Eli felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. An excitement, a curiosity, a spark of connection. He realized that this giant Apache woman, with her bold words and calm presence, had already begun to change the rhythm of his day. The quiet ranch, the usual monotony, had suddenly become brighter, richer, and more alive. As the sun continued to set, they talked more. About the ranch, about the desert, about small, everyday things that felt important in the vast emptiness of the land. Eli found himself laughing at her stories, listening intently to her experiences, and noticing little things about her that made her seem more real, more human. Her strength and presence were undeniable, but so was her warmth and honesty. When the shadows grew long and the air cooled, Marisol stood. "I should go," she said, though her tone was gentle, not hurried. "But I might come back tomorrow, if that's okay. There's something about this place that feels like home, even for a little while." Eli nodded, feeling a strange mixture of hope and nervousness. "You're welcome to stay as long as you like. The ranch, it's always here." And so am I. Marisol smiled, tipping her hat in a playful gesture. Thank you, Eli. I think I'll take you up on that. As she walked away, her figure tall and graceful against the fading light, Eli watched in silence. The desert returned to its quiet state, but now it felt different, less empty, more alive. He didn't know what would happen next, or what this unusual encounter might lead to, but for the first time in a long while, he felt a flicker of anticipation, a spark of curiosity about the possibilities that lay ahead. The ranch was the same as it had always been, yet something had shifted. A door had opened, not just in the physical space of his life, but in the quiet, reserved heart of Eli Thompson. And in the fading glow of the desert sunset, he knew that his days were about to change in ways he could never have imagined. The next morning, the sun rose slowly over the desert, casting soft light over the ranch. Eli Thompson woke before dawn, as he always did, to the sound of the wind moving through the dry grass and the distant lowing of cattle. His life had always been simple, measured in chores and routines, but something about the previous day lingered in his mind. He couldn't stop thinking about Marisol, the giant Apache woman who had appeared at his gate and spoken so boldly about her life. Her words, her laughter, and even her presence had left an unusual mark on him. Eli dressed quickly, pulling on his worn boots and hat, then stepped outside. The air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of sage and earth. He went to the corral to check on the cattle, his hand steady as he opened gates and guided the animals toward the feeding area. Despite the routine work, his mind wandered. He wondered if Marisol would return, as she had suggested. He felt a nervous anticipation, a mixture of curiosity and excitement that he had not felt in years. Around mid-morning, a cloud of dust appeared on the road. Eli's heart lifted. It was her. Marisol walked toward the ranch with confidence, her long shadow stretching across the dry land. She smiled at him from a distance, and Eli waved, feeling a strange warmth rise in his chest. She carried a small bag, her boots kicking up dust with each step, and as she reached the porch, she paused to catch her breath, brushing a strand of dark hair from her face. "Good morning, Eli," she said, her voice cheerful but calm. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything important."
"You're not," Eli replied, trying to sound casual, though he felt a little nervous.
"I was just checking on the cattle." "Come in. Or, well, sit on the porch. The shade is better." Marisol nodded and stepped onto the porch, setting her bag down. She looked around, taking in the small ranch with interest. "It's peaceful here," she said. "I like it. It feels safe, like I can breathe." Eli nodded, offering her a chair. "It is safe. Quiet, too. Most days it's just me and the cattle. No surprises. Except today, maybe." He gave a small smile, feeling awkward but honest. Marisol laughed softly, a sound that seemed to echo lightly in the warm air. I'll try not to be too much of a surprise," she said, settling into the chair. Her presence was calm, but there was energy in her posture, a confidence that made Eli both curious and cautious. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the sun climb higher in the sky. Then, Marisol spoke again. "Ellie, I've been traveling a lot. And sometimes when you move from place to place, it's hard to feel connected. Hard to feel like you belong anywhere. That's why I came here. I don't know why exactly, but something about this place made me stop." Eli listened intently, intrigued by her honesty. He wasn't used to people opening up so quickly, especially strangers, He found himself wanting to know more, but unsure how to ask. "You seem very sure of yourself," he said carefully. "Most people, they don't just walk into a ranch and talk like that." Marisol smiled, a faint twinkle in her dark eyes. "I guess I'm not most people," she said. Then, softly, almost in a whisper, she added, "And sometimes you have to take chances, even if it's scary, even if you don't know what will happen." Eli felt a strange connection to her words. He knew the feeling well, the quiet fear of change, the comfort of routine, but he also felt a pull towards something different, something unexpected, and he realized that Marisol was stirring feelings inside him that he hadn't felt before. As the morning turned into afternoon, they moved from the porch to the corral. Marisol watched Eli as he worked, holding gates and checking the fences. She asked questions, genuinely curious, about the animals and the ranch. Eli explained patiently, surprised at how natural it felt to share his world with her. He even found himself laughing at her jokes and playful teasing, something he rarely did with anyone. At one point, a young calf wandered too close to the fence, its small legs shaking as it tried to push its way out. Eli quickly moved to guide it back, and Marisol followed, helping him gently. "You're very good with them," she said. "They trust you." Eli shrugged, feeling a warmth at her words. "I've been doing this my whole life. You learn to understand them. They tell you things, if you listen." Marisol nodded thoughtfully, crouching to stroke the calf's soft fur. "I think that's why I like this place," she said quietly. "It feels honest, simple, no pretending." Eli watched her, noticing the care in her movements, the ease with which she interacted with the animals. He had seen people before, travelers or neighbors, but few had this kind of presence. She seemed to belong here, in a strange and unexpected way, even though she had just arrived. The afternoon sun grew hotter, and they returned to the porch, both thirsty and slightly tired. Marisol pulled out a notebook from her bag, flipping through the pages. "I like to write sometimes," she said. "It helps me think, helps me remember, helps me make sense of things." Eli leaned back, curious. "What kind of things?" "People, places, feelings," she said. "The small moments that matter but sometimes get lost." "Like this," she added, gesturing to the ranch. "Or like the way the wind smells after rain. Or the way someone smiles when they're nervous." Eli felt his chest tighten slightly. He had never thought much about those small moments, focused more on work and survival. But listening to her, he realized that these little things, moments of connection, laughter, understanding, were what made life richer. He found himself watching her more closely, noticing how her eyes sparkled when she laughed, how her hands moved when she spoke, how even the sound of her voice seemed to linger in the warm air. Hours passed quickly. They talked, laughed, and sometimes sat in comfortable silence, simply enjoying each other's company. Eli began to feel a strange mix of anticipation and peace, a feeling he hadn't experienced in years. It was as though the desert itself had shifted, the quiet space of his life now filled with a new kind of energy. As the sun began to dip toward the horizon, Marisol stood, stretching slightly. "I should get going," she said softly. "But I'll be back tomorrow, if that's okay." Eli nodded, a mix of excitement and nervousness stirring inside him. "You're welcome any time," he said. "The ranch, it's always here." Marisol smiled, a hint of mischief in her eyes. Thank you, Ellie. I think I'll take you up on that. She waved and walked down the dusty road, her figure tall and confident against the setting sun. Eli watched her go, a strange warmth lingering in his chest. The ranch returned to its usual quiet, but it no longer felt empty. The day had changed, and with it, something inside him had shifted. For the first time in a long while, Eli realized that life could hold unexpected moments, moments that could stir curiosity, excitement, and even hope. He didn't know what the future held with Marisol, but he felt ready to find out. Something about her presence had opened a new door in his life, a door he had not even known was there. That night, as he sat alone on the porch watching the stars blink to life in the desert sky, Eli thought about her words. Sometimes you have to take chances. He realized that perhaps, just perhaps, it was time for him to take a small chance of his own. The desert was quiet once again, but it no longer felt empty. Somewhere out there, Marisol walked under the same sky, and the thought made him smile softly. For the first time in months, or perhaps years, Eli felt the stirrings of something new, something he could not name yet but wanted to explore. And in that quiet, starlit night, the shy cowboy felt the first flicker of change in his life. The next morning, the desert was alive with a soft, golden light. The wind carried the warm scent of dry grass, and the horizon glowed with streaks of pink and orange. Eli Thompson woke early, as always, checking on the cattle before the heat of the day set in. He moved with his usual calm, guiding the animals and inspecting the fences. But unlike other mornings, his mind was not only on the work, it lingered on Marisol. He wondered if she would come today, what she would say, and if she might stay a little longer this time. Around mid-morning, he saw her figure walking along the dirt road, tall and graceful, her wide-brimmed hat casting a shadow over her face. Eli felt his chest tighten, a strange mix of anticipation and nervousness coursing through him. Marisol's presence had become something he looked forward to in a way he had not expected. She waved at him, and he waved back, unable to hide a small smile. "Good morning, Eli," she called, her voice carrying clearly across the corral. "Morning, Marisol," he replied, trying to keep his tone casual, though his heart raced. "I wasn't sure if you'd come today. I wouldn't miss it," she said, her smile bright and confident. "I like seeing this place, and you." She paused for a moment, her gaze meeting his, and Eli felt a warmth spread across his chest. Her presence was both comforting and exciting at the same time. They spent the morning together, moving from the porch to the corral, checking on the cattle and performing chores. Marisol watched Eli carefully, asking questions and learning quickly. She handled the animals with surprising ease, her movements confident yet gentle. Eli explained the routines, the behaviors of the cattle, and how to read their moods. He was surprised at how naturally she fit into the rhythm of the ranch, as if she belonged there, even though she had only arrived recently. After a while, Marisol suggested they take a short walk along the edge of the property. The red cliffs rose sharply above the desert floor, and the path wound through scattered bushes and rocky terrain. Eli felt nervous at first. He wasn't used to walking this far with anyone, but Marisol's calm energy put him at ease. "You know," she said, her voice soft, "this place feels different from anywhere I've ever been. It's honest, open, you can see everything, and yet it feels safe." "I think I needed that." Eli nodded, looking at the horizon. "It is different, quiet, peaceful, but it can be lonely too." Marisol turned to him, her eyes thoughtful. "Lonely isn't always bad," she said. "Sometimes it makes you notice the things that matter. the things that you don't see when life is noisy. Eli was quiet for a moment, thinking about her words. She spoke with a kind of wisdom that surprised him. He had spent most of his life working alone, believing that silence and routine were all he needed. But now he realized that connection, understanding, and companionship could make life richer, even in the quietest places. As they walked, the sound of hooves echoed from the distant corral. Eli's gaze shifted, and his heart sank slightly. A group of the younger cattle had broken free and were running in a small stampede. Panic flared in Eli's chest. He had faced stampedes before, but not like this, and he knew the animals could injure themselves or escape if they weren't guided quickly. "Marisol," he called, his voice urgent. "We need to stop them." Without hesitation, she followed him, moving swiftly across the rocky terrain. Eli felt a surge of relief mixed with admiration. She was not just bold with words, she was brave in action, too. Together, they ran toward the stampeding cattle, Eli guiding them with a practiced hand and Marisol assisting wherever she could. The herd was scattered, some calves running too fast, their small legs struggling to keep up. Eli's heart pounded as he shouted commands, waving his arms to redirect them. Marisol moved confidently among the animals, her voice calm but firm, helping them stay on track. Despite the chaos, she remained composed, her presence steadying him in the midst of panic. After several tense minutes, they managed to guide the herd back into the corral. Eli leaned against the wooden fence, breathing heavily, his clothes streaked with dust and sweat. Marisol stood beside him, brushing dirt from her hands and smiling faintly. "That was intense," she said, her tone almost light, though her eyes reflected the seriousness of the moment. Eli nodded, still catching his breath. "It could have been worse. But you helped a lot. I don't know what I would have done without you." She shrugged, a playful grin appearing on her face. "I didn't want to see any calves hurt. And I like a little adventure now and then." Eli chuckled, feeling a strange mixture of relief and admiration. Her bravery impressed him, but more than that, her calm confidence made him realize how much he enjoyed having her around. He had spent years working alone, managing the ranch and avoiding emotional risks, but now, with Marisol, life felt fuller, richer, and more alive. They returned to the porch after the chaos, both tired but satisfied. Marisol sat quietly, watching the sunset paint the desert in shades of gold and red. Eli brought them each a glass of water, and they drank in silence, the kind of silence that was comfortable and shared. "You handled yourself well today," Eli said, finally, breaking the quiet. I've never seen anyone move like that with the cattle. You were fearless." Marisol smiled, a softness in her eyes. "Fear doesn't always disappear," she said quietly, "but you can choose to act anyway. That's what matters. You chose to act too, Eli. You didn't hesitate." Eli felt a warmth in his chest at her words. He realized that she saw him, not just the quiet, reserved man who tended the ranch, but the person inside who cared deeply and was capable of bravery when it mattered. He had never felt recognized in this way before, and it made his heart beat faster. As the last light of day faded, they sat on the porch, talking quietly. Marisol shared stories from her travels, about the towns she had visited, the people she had met, and the small joys and challenges along the way. Eli listened with rapt attention, laughing at her jokes and marveling at her perspective. She had a way of noticing details, of finding beauty and meaning in simple moments that made him see the world differently. Eventually, Marisol leaned back, her eyes reflecting the deepening twilight. "Eli," she said softly, "I feel something here." something I haven't felt in a long time. I don't know if it's right or wrong. I just feel it. Do you?" Eli's heart pounded. He had felt it too, a connection that went beyond friendship, beyond simple companionship. But fear and shyness made him hesitate. I think I do," he admitted quietly. I, I didn't expect it. But yes, I feel it too." A small, knowing smile appeared on Marisol's face. "Then maybe we should see where it goes," she said gently. Eli nodded, a mix of excitement and nervousness swirling inside him. The day had started with ordinary routines and ended with something extraordinary, a connection he had never imagined possible. Night fell over the desert, and the ranch was bathed in moonlight. The stars sparkled above, reflecting in the quiet eyes of the cattle in the corral. Eli and Marisol sat side by side on the porch, speaking in whispers, laughing softly, and occasionally sharing long, thoughtful silences. For the first time, Eli felt the weight of loneliness lift, replaced by something thrilling yet comforting. He realized that life could be unpredictable, that moments of danger, joy, and connection could appear suddenly, like they had today. And in that unpredictability, there was beauty, a beauty he was only beginning to understand. For Eli Thompson, the shy cowboy who had once been content with solitude, the presence of Marisol had opened a new chapter in his life. A chapter filled with curiosity, excitement, and the promise of something more than he had ever known. He didn't know what the future would bring, but he was ready to face it, one step at a time, with her by his side. The desert mornings at the ranch had grown warmer and brighter with the arrival of spring. The sun stretched across the horizon, casting soft light over the red cliffs and golden grasses. Birds chirped from hidden trees, and the occasional breeze carried the scent of wildflowers and fresh earth. For Eli Thompson, life had begun to feel different, fuller, richer, and brighter than it had in years. The quiet ranch he had always known now held laughter, companionship, and a warmth he had never imagined possible. Marisol had become a constant presence in his life. She moved through the ranch with ease, helping with chores, guiding the animals, and learning the small, quiet ways of the land. It was fearless and strong, yet gentle and thoughtful, and Eli found himself watching her, fascinated by how she could be both commanding and comforting at the same time. Their bond had grown naturally through shared work, quiet moments, and long conversations under the wide desert sky. On this particular morning, Eli woke earlier than usual, as he often did, and made his way to the corral. The cattle were restless and the horses needed checking, but his mind wandered to Marisol. He wondered where she had gone that morning, and hoped she would join him soon. Just as he finished inspecting the fences, he heard the sound of footsteps approaching. It was her tall figure moving across the sunlit dirt path. She waved, her face bright with a smile, and Eli felt a rush of happiness. "Good morning, Eli," she called, her voice cheerful, carrying easily across the corral. "Morning, Marisol," he replied, smiling broadly. "I was hoping you'd be here early. There's work to do, and I like having you around." Marisol laughed softly, a sound that warmed the air. "I like being here too," she said. "I think I'm starting to understand why this place feels so special to you." They spent the morning tending to the animals, checking fences and preparing feed. Eli guided Marisol patiently, explaining the small routines he had learned over years of ranch life. She listened carefully, asking questions, learning quickly, and offering her help wherever she could. Her presence made the work feel lighter, even joyful, and Eli felt a sense of contentment he had never known. By midday, the sun was high and the heat pressing, so they rested under the shade of the large oak tree near the barn. They sat quietly for a moment, watching the cattle graze in the distance, and then Marisol spoke, her voice thoughtful. "Eli," she began, "I've been thinking about the last few weeks, about how much life can change in such a short time. I came here looking for something. I wasn't sure what. Maybe peace, maybe company, maybe just a place to rest. And I found so much more than I expected." Eli looked at her, curious. "More than you expected?" Marisol nodded, her eyes soft and serious. "Yes, I found someone who sees me, not just my strength, my presence, or my confidence, but who sees all of me. And I found myself wanting to stay, wanting to build something here with someone who cares." Eli's chest tightened, and he reached for her hand. "Marisol, I feel the same. You've changed my world in ways I didn't think were possible. I never imagined I'd find someone like you here. And now I can't imagine my life without you." Marisol smiled, a warmth spreading across her face. "Then we have a choice, don't we?" she said gently. "We can hold on to this, or we can let it grow." Eli nodded, squeezing her hand. "I want it to grow. I want to face whatever comes, together." For the rest of the day, they worked side by side, laughing, sharing stories, and planning small improvements around the ranch. They built stronger fences, repaired the barn roof, and even planted a small garden near the house. Each task, no matter how simple, became an opportunity to connect, to learn more about each other, and to create a shared life. As evening approached, the sky turned shades of orange, pink, and purple. The desert was quiet, except for the gentle rustle of wind through the grasses and the distant calls of birds returning to their nests. Eli and Marisol sat on the porch, their feet dangling above the wooden boards, drinking water and enjoying the calm beauty around them. "You know," Marisol said softly, "I never imagined I'd feel so at home somewhere, but here, with you, I do." Eli smiled, feeling a surge of emotion. "I feel the same. This ranch, it was always my world, but now it's ours, and I wouldn't trade that for anything." They sat in silence for a moment, watching the sun dip below the horizon, and then Eli spoke again. "Marisol, I want to ask you something. I know it's sudden, but would you consider staying here with me? Not just for a few days, but for longer." "For as long as you want." Marisol's eyes softened, and she took a deep breath. "Eli, I would love that," she said, her voice filled with warmth and certainty. "I've been searching for a place where I could belong. And now, I know I've found it. With you." The night fell slowly, the sky turning dark and filled with countless stars. The cool desert air wrapped around the ranch, carrying the quiet sounds of nature. Eli and Marisol sat close together, their shoulders touching, sharing soft words and gentle laughter. The bond they had formed over weeks of shared work, quiet moments, and honest conversations had grown into something deep and lasting. In the days that followed, life at the ranch settled into a new rhythm. Ellie and Marisol worked together, cared for the animals, and shared meals under the open sky. They discovered the joy of small routines, the comfort of companionship, and the excitement of building a life together. The ranch, once a place of solitude and quiet work, had become a home filled with warmth, laughter, and love. The townsfolk began to notice the change in Eli. The shy, quiet cowboy who had once kept to himself now walked with a confidence, a lightness in his step that reflected the joy he carried inside. And Marisol, with her calm strength and gentle presence, became a familiar figure in the community, respected and admired for her kindness, wisdom, and courage. One evening, as the sun set behind the cliffs, casting the desert in shades of deep orange and gold, Eli and Marisol walked along the ridge, holding hands. The sky was painted with colors that seemed almost unreal, and the air was filled with the soft sounds of the desert winding down for the night. "Do you ever think about the first day we met?" Eli asked, smiling at the memory. Marisol laughed softly. "Of course. You were so shy, and I was probably too bold. But I knew then that something special could happen here, that maybe we could find something real, together." Ellie squeezed her hand gently. "I'm glad you stopped at the ranch that day. I don't think I would have ever opened up if it weren't for you." Marisol rested her head on his shoulder. "And I'm glad I did, because now I feel like I'm home. And you're home too, in a way I've never known before." As night fell, they returned to the porch, sitting quietly under the starlit sky. The air was cool, carrying the faint scent of sage and earth. They talked softly, sharing dreams, plans, and hopes for the future. Each word, each glance, and each touch deepened their connection, building a life together that was full of love, trust, and understanding. Over time, the ranch flourished. The cattle were healthy, the fields were productive, and the small garden they had planted grew with tender care. But more importantly, the home they built together was filled with laughter, joy, and the quiet comfort of knowing they belonged to each other. Eli often reflected on how his life had changed in such a short time. The shy, reserved cowboy who had once been content with solitude had discovered a love that was patient, gentle, and true. And Marisol, the traveler who had wandered in search of peace and belonging, had found a partner who saw her completely, embraced her fully, and loved her sincerely. Together they faced challenges, celebrated successes, and built a life that was simple yet rich, ordinary yet extraordinary. They learned that love was not about grand gestures or dramatic moments. It was about shared work, quiet understanding, mutual respect, and the willingness to be vulnerable with someone you trusted. As the stars shone brightly over the desert night, Eli and Marisol sat side by side, hands intertwined, hearts full of gratitude and hope. They knew that life would continue to bring challenges, but they also knew that together they could face anything. And in the quiet, vast beauty of the desert, they found something rare and precious, a love that was real, enduring, and unshakable. Eli whispered softly, "I never imagined life could be this good. With you, everything feels right." Marisol smiled, resting her head against his shoulder. "And it is. We've found each other. And now we have everything." The desert stretched out around them, quiet and still, a witness to the love that had blossomed between the shy cowboy and the giant Apache woman. And as they sat together under the endless sky, they knew that their story, one of courage, honesty, and patient love, was only just beginning.